What's going on? My name is Amy Nicholas. Welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to talk about 5 things I wish I knew before starting day trading. I started day trading, technically, I did a couple of day trades in November of last year, and really I didn't start officially calling myself a day trader because I was more doing swing trades in November until December. So December, and now it's March of 2025, and this is my 4th month. And the very first thing I feel like a lot of people run into this as a beginner is when you start day trading, especially if you were like me, where you jumped in a bull market and it almost seemed like, hey, this is a great time to get in, it's a good time to make money, like all your investments are up, if you're long term. And that's kind of where I got in. So when I first started day trading, I had beginner's luck. And I think a lot of people experience this where it seems like it's not like I felt like I knew what I was doing per se, but I thought, okay, this is working. It's working right away, like month 1, month 2. It's like December, January. And then February was my first down month where I actually was at a loss. And it was nothing much. I think it was just down under 20 bucks. But the first 2 months kind of gave me, and maybe you've experienced this, a false sense of security where you are like, oh, this is fun and I'm not making a lot of money, but I'm doing it, right? And I'm like making some profit. And I think that kind of it shakes you a little bit when you do start to take losses, because you're like, wait a minute, I was doing better when I first started. Now I'm like further in and I'm experiencing more losses. Technically, like right now, I had a bad week the last week and kind of the week before, half and half. And I'm actually still up. I'm still green for March so far. And there's only one more trading day left of March. So I can't beat myself up too much. I'm going in the right direction. But that was something I noticed. The other thing that kind of coincides with that beginner's luck is that the more you know about trading in terms of like the technicals, the charts, the indicators, all these different ways of trading, all these different markets, the more you know, the harder it is, because then you start opening your mind up to other ways of trading, other styles, other people's opinions. Somebody says, yeah, I'm trading, Forex, that's all I do. I'm doing great. Maybe you jump ship from something else, maybe you're doing stocks like me, you jump around, or, and then you start to not have success because you're jumping around. Or you maybe this happened to you. I felt like I had gotten some books, watched a bunch of videos, and there's so many conflicting opinions about like, oh, this indicator, or oh, I always take these setups, or whatever. And people aren't necessarily saying like, oh, you have to do what I do in order to be successful. It's really just you're absorbing a lot more noise, because I was like very eager to learn. And I'm like, I will study, I'm reading the books, I'm gonna figure this stuff out, I'm gonna do tape reading, I'm gonna do the charts, I'm gonna understand technical patterns and trend lines, I'm gonna learn how to read candles. And you're like trying to cram all that stuff in. And it's at that point, you start getting a little bit overwhelmed, and you're starting to learn enough to make you dangerous. And it's like, okay, at this point you can get easily confused. You can start to doubt what you were doing before and thinking, well, did I even have a strategy? I don't know. I was winning, but like, I don't know, and then you're like breaking rules that you didn't even know you're supposed to have, things like that. I feel like there's this sort of learning curve of you want to be open, you want to absorb new ideas, you want to be teachable, but you have to cut it off at a certain point of like, okay, I don't want to learn too many different things because it's only going to serve me as confusion. I need to be focused. I need to, not clutter my chart. I need to stick to my setup, my one setup, and just cut out the noise. So yeah, kind of wish I knew that in the beginning. The other thing, number 3, is mental discipline. I feel like comes into play in this career more than anything else I've done in my life. And I've done several entrepreneurial things online, had different online businesses, e-commerce stores, digital services, done ebooks and different things online. And before that, I worked for an insurance company. Before that, I worked for a rental car company. Before that, I worked for a bank. And when I first got started, I was working in a movie theater. None of these other jobs, okay, and even when I became an entrepreneur, required such mental discipline in the sense of like, you and only you. Now, a little bit with the entrepreneurial stuff, because you and only you are going to create the income, right? But it's the accountability that is so important with trading. It's the whole like idea of, these are my rules, I'm going to stick to them. If I break a rule, maybe you have to set up bumpers for yourself. Some sort of consequence has to be executed. Like for me this last week, I had 3 red days in a row. So my consequence executed was to take and say, Thursday and Friday I'm off. Now I messed up again and I day traded Friday when I shouldn't have. So I'm going to figure that one out I'm probably only going to trade 4 days this coming week and just, be like, okay, gotta just stick to the plan here, right? No over trading. So number 4, trading psychology over the technicals. This is by far the most underrated thing, and I kind of applaud myself in a sense for seeing this early on in my trading journey, because I come from a background of being heavily into personal development for like the last decade, numerous courses, seminars, digital programs, really investing, books, learning, conferences, like really investing in myself to become the best version of me and also to create the life that I really want to create. And I think that the psychology of that has really helped me to understand what it is that actually works for successful people, in the sense of, okay, they might think that their brilliant setup as a trader is making them all the money. They might think that, they've been in this game for many years and made all kinds of mistakes, and then they finally hit their success story. But I've listened enough to people like Mark Douglas. Trading in the Zone, Disciplined Trader. He's got great videos on YouTube. By the way, my trading resources, there's a link down below. You can just put your email in there and get access for free. I'm putting all this resources in there that have helped me to get this far in day trading, from the beginning. And there was a Mark Douglas video that really just stood out to me so much on YouTube. I've got the link in that. So if you're interested, look in the comments or the description below. But his idea of, you can be so brilliant on the charts. You can be so good at the technicals. There's even the book Market Wizards, where they interview top traders. They talk about this notion that, for example, if you're like a broker, like sometimes you can't be a trader because they just actually can't execute, right? They can't actually jump in mentally and do the trade. And I think that's a whole different thing, right? It's one thing to be like this great expert and you can totally predict, where stock might go, whatever. But the people that actually jump in the trade and win, and profit, like that is a different psychology. That's not just chart reading and tape reading and, candlesticks and all that. It's the psychology of being able to manage your emotions, being able to stick to your strategy and your rules, being mentally disciplined. And if you have any kind of like limiting beliefs about your ability to succeed at this, it is most definitely going to hold back your trading. For example, I had been working on the fear that was coming up where I was nervous to get into a trade because I had a couple of losses and it was starting to surpass what I had in gains one month, and it kind of shook me, and I was like, starting to notice hesitation getting in on trades. And so I had started to just trade so stupidly small that I would hopefully overcome the fear of getting in the trade, and it worked. I went from trading, like 40, 50, 60 shares down to 1 share per trade, and I did an experiment of 20 trades, and over that course of time, which I documented on this channel, I stopped feeling that fear because I made it so small that it wasn't about the money anymore. Like I wasn't fearful of losing money. My stop loss was, was there, but I was only going to lose the one share if I got stopped out. And then it enabled me to just focus on the process, just really just focus in the moment, be in this specific trade, focus on the process, and not to worry about, am I going to be right? Or am I going to lose money? So all of that, I think is the psychology stuff. It's, yes, you're going to have to know technicals to be at this game long term by all means, but I kind of feel like it's at least 80-20, where 80% is mindset kind of stuff, or even 90-10. 90% is the psychology of like, if you can just master what's going on up here, then trading is like a million times easier, right? Because how often do you get into a trade and you experience all these crazy emotions, doubt, fear, FOMO, greed, overconfident, or just, and then if you take a loss, like how do you handle the loss? Like that is huge. Being able to handle losses in a way where you reframe it that, hey, I'm learning. Hey, it's the price of tuition. Hey, there's always another day as long as I didn't blow up my account, right? Just realizing that you can have a different story behind what a loss is. It's actually, it's in one sense, it's a win because you learn more from your losses than you do from your wins, right? So number 5, that 5 things I wish I knew, that YouTubers, I'm calling out all you YouTubers that talk about trading and y'all flashing stuff, and that's great. Like I am definitely interested in one day rolling down the street in my Lambo being like, yeah, I'm a day trader, yo. But you guys don't put out the real truth. Okay, you might say it in passing here and there in certain videos, but this whole concept of like, look at my mansion, my car, all this great stuff I've gotten from trading, which is, good for you. I'm not saying that it's bad to show you that stuff, but you need to be realistic with people because people get into this watching those videos and thinking that's going to be them in a month, 6 months, a year. And some people didn't even start their YouTube channel until after they were successful. So they're coming in showing how easy this is. And what drives me crazy, y'all, I'm not going to be, let's just hypothetically, I'm down the line here because I know this will be happening one day soon. I'll be like, okay, hit my first $500 day, $1,000 day. I will not be like, hey, y'all, $1,000 in the thumbnail in 3 minutes, okay? Because they don't talk about the hour and a half they spent prepping that morning for trading day. They don't talk about the night before looking over the markets, watching the futures, watching other stocks. They don't talk about reading the headlines, looking at the news, studying a specific stock over days, weeks, months, right? It's so ridiculous that they'll put up a video and say, I made X amount of dollars in 30 seconds or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever, 2 hours of trading, whatever. Because there's so much more time involved that they're basically just lying to you, okay? Yeah, they clicked a button and then they clicked another button and the money went in their account in that 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. But the fact that they're trying to portray that this is how it is, this is how easy it is, this kind of stuff kind of pisses me off. So I probably had some times where I'm watching certain videos when I first got started. I'm kind of like above the noise in the sense of like, it didn't make me too susceptible to what they were saying. I'm a little bit thinking smarter than that, but I did watch, some people where it's like, oh, interesting, and they do make it seem easy. They really do. And you're like, hey, come watch me trade. Like, it's so easy. Like, yeah, I saw this setup and I got in and, they don't talk about the emotions they went through just getting to that point. Like, how do they go from trading, say they started with like 20 shares a trade or 50 shares, or, maybe they're trading other markets where they have contracts. Or I don't know how those work, but I'm just familiar with stocks and ETFs, okay. But let's just say, this was their journey. They don't talk about that stuff. They don't say, yeah, when I was trading 10 shares or 20 shares or 100 shares, they're talking about like, yeah, I'm trading 10,000 shares, 5,000 shares. And it's like, okay, can we just bring it down to reality just a little bit, turn it backwards just a bit, and explain the reality of the journey. And so I just, I made I made this video because I'm like, I gotta include this in here. It drives me crazy that unfortunately there are people who are going to believe that what they're portraying in this sort of fast lifestyle of trading is that it's going to be like that. And the truth be told, you're going to be sitting and staring at a screen out of a trade more often than you are in a trade. Like if you think about it, the actual time that you spend literally clicking by, waiting for your trade to pan out, whether you stay in and you take a profit or you get stopped out, and then clicking like sell if you're manually doing it, that time is so small in comparison to all the other stuff I just mentioned. The prep work, the studying the charts, the looking back over your trades, the journaling, the planning, the scanning, like hours upon hours upon hours. The learning, maybe you take courses, maybe you go to an event, trying to learn more about trading. Maybe you are, you got a mentor, you got a coaching program. There's so much time, right, put into this. It's insane to think like we're actually spending very much time in a trade. It's very little in comparison. Like a day trader really spends very little time actually in a trade. So it's kind of a misnomer in a sense. It's like you're trading, but that's such a tiny part of your entire day, right? Even if it's a market day, even like if it's a weekend, unless you're trading crypto or something, it's like you're not even trading on the weekend, right? So anyways, guys, those are the 5 things I wish I knew when I first got started with day trading. And if you want to check out the trading resources I mentioned earlier, you can check the link down below. Like I said, I've got video links, YouTubers that I follow and respect and I've actually, learned from. Some of them are a bit flashy too, I will say. Still think you can get something from the mindset side of it sometimes though. And then I've also got book links down there. So feel free to check it out and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.